Hi guys. Like you could tell, I'm not feeling the greatest. I just wanted to get on here. I'm so sorry about not coming on live. I feel like I've disappointed you already. But in 1968, George Romero came up with The Night of the Living Dead. And John Russo, of course, was the writer of the Night of the Living Dead, and it became a cult classic. In um, with $114,000 they made this movie, and it was a low budget film, and it became a cult classic. And I mean, it became our new genre of horror. Night of the Living Dead became zombie. They became instant zombie kings, the king of the zombies, I guess you would call it. And I don't think I've ever seen a film or any film creator like Nick or Greg Nicotero or any of them ever not mention them as their inspiration to their movies and their like Quentin Tarantino, um, their inspirations for like the Walking Dead series and stuff. As far as the movie goes, it was supposed to be called The Night of the Flesh Eaters, but then there was already a movie called The Night of the Flesh Eaters. Now, of course, it didn't make it as big as Night of the Living Dead, but as they were sitting there around coffee, around a table drinking coffee, Nicotero, or excuse me, Romero and Russo thought of Night of the Living Dead. So that has how it became the show, the movie Night of the Living Dead. Um, it premiered. It became an instant cult classic, and when it appeared in October 1st of 1968 in a little theater called Fulton Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, George Romero, Tom Savini, who was the makeup artist and stuff, camera shooting, and John Russo became, like I said, gods of the living dead or the undead, and brought everything zombie to us instantly. And people think of them, like I said, every time they see a movie of zombies. And for me growing up, zombies were the best things. I mean, I still watch zombies. Whenever I get depressed, and I know this sounds weird, every time I get depressed, I have to get, or sad, or whatever, or angry, anytime, I guess. I have to put in a zombie movie, and something about people getting ripped apart. I mean, I can see people getting ripped apart. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound weird, but I have watched every horror movie you could possibly think of. But when it comes to pets, I just freak out anymore since I lost my dog and everything like that. And it's totally changed my thought on that process. In the scene, the infamous scene of the beginning of the movie, you go into a cemetery. And with this cemetery, it is a real place. It was shot in a real cemetery with the church and the chapel and stuff. And the chapel and the church, the little tiny church and the chapel and stuff, is still there. In every year, they have a Night of the Living Dead kind of reunion where they go and they fix up this little tiny chapel. And so when you're going in and it's the first scene of Barbara and John coming into the cemetery, it's called Evans Cemetery. And there it is in Evans City. And there's even a sign there now. They had to put a new sign up, and they restored like I said, the chapel, and through these movie things. Like, unfortunately, George Romero passed away a couple of years ago, and the rest of the remaining crew and the producers and stuff have restored all of this living things. When you go into the cemetery, it's like every cemetery I've ever been into. Just about in I live in the Midwest, and so you've seen cemeteries out in the middle of nowhere. It's strange. Uh, there's nothing around you. You you instantly think of this movie, and I'll be honest, I've never, in my lifetime, ever been in a cemetery without thinking of this movie. I remember one time I went to a cemetery funeral for a friend, and the minister was talking about how wouldn't it be joyous if the dead started rising up from the ground, and he was talking about, of course, Revelations, and it kind of freaked us out. We're standing there and we're all this horror movie people that are like, oh no, the dead's going to start to come rise up out of the ground. Uh, let's see here. I wanted to give you also a little bit of tidbits. Clyde Lewis played Johnny, and that, of course, is Barbara's brother, and that was probably, he gave one of the most prolific used sentence in throughout the whole movie, and it was, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And I think in my life and everybody that I've known, we've all used that scary sentence. They're coming to get you, Barbara. And I've seen a million movies, and they all use that sentence. As a famous line. Even Shaun of the Dead uses it as the spoof of "We're coming to get you, Barbara." And so that made her, Barbara O'Hara, that she played, of course, Barbara. I think that was her name. I don't I don't know if that was her name. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling very good. Um, I knew it was O'Hara. Anyway, she became famous for this movie, and I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else after that. Dwayne Jones was Ben, and he was our hero of the story, of course. And with him, he became the fighter and the one who tried to protect the complete group of people in that little house that they ended up in. And it was a story of survival. And I think that a lot of movies and a lot of, especially zombie movies, you instantly think of this movie because it's board up the windows, secure all the doors, make sure you're safe. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised on a lot of people. Even myself, I've thought about how would I protect myself from a zombie apocalypse? How would I board up the house? How would I you know, keep the doors shut and um, all of this stuff? And a lot of people, they even have zombie apocalypse um, preppers. They do. Honestly, you can find them on YouTube. You can look them up, and they have built their houses for zombie proof. And it's kind of cool to watch that. And granted, it does say in the Bible, um, when hell is full, that the dead will rise. And think about it. To be honest, um, this weekend has been, and I don't want to sound blasphemous. Please don't take it that way. Uh, Jesus was our first zombie type raise of the dead. He told them to eat his bread, and that was his flesh. He told them to drink the wine, and that was his blood. So we could go way, 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 way back, and have similar type references to a zombie. But what is odd about these movies is they never, ever, 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 ever name them zombie. Not once in this movie, Night of the Living Dead, is they've never called them zombies. And a lot of people like Simon Pegg, who did Shaun of the Dead, which, if you haven't seen that movie, it's very hilarious. Shaun of the Dead, he references we don't say the Z word. Well, we don't reference the Z words. And then there's so many different zombie movies out there that I think I've seen them all. I love them all. What would you rather do? Have the fast moving zombies like in 48 hours or 28 hours? I can't remember which movie it was. But the fast ones that move fast, like in World War Z with Brad Pitt? Or would you rather have the slow moving zombies as in Night of the Living Dead? And of course, if you look at this movie, they were pretty smart. The first one picks up a rock in the cemetery and busts the window. They still have that motor skill and that thinking skill to pick up a rock and bust a window instead of just pounding on the window or trying to get into her. They pick up the rock and they bust the window and they bust out the headlights of the truck that's sitting out in front of the house. So that is another thing that you got to look at. And I took a course in college called the Art of Film, and it just totally screwed up every movie I've ever watched. I try to pick out Easter eggs and stuff through all the movies and stuff, but I do enjoy a good jump scare, and I do enjoy good horror movies. I think that that is my favorite genre because of this movie, Night of the Living Dead. And I grew up on horror movies. And I think that it kind of brings us back around to facing our fears. Children, sometimes if they've been taken to the point where they can't never see things like this, like scary movies or anything else, they grow up frightened because they're not understanding the fear of monsters. And like I said, it could be a story of survival someday. Granted, it's never going to have a zombie apocalypse, knock on wood. But if the zombie apocalypse does come upon us, I am the girl to survive because I know just about everything. So, with our poor story of Night of the Living Dead, of course, we all know the ending. If you've never watched it, I'm not going to say it. But it just, it's very jarring to me, um, the ending. And it became a cult classic movie. Every Halloween, people do it, and every year on October 1st, they do go back to the cemetery, Evans Cemetery, and they have a little Night of the Living Dead reunion. And I think that would be so interesting to go see. I would love to have met George Romero or Greg. I would love to meet Greg Nicotero or the king of horror makeup, the infamous, excuse me, the infamous Tom Savini, who has studios and he teaches classes and stuff on how to do the makeup and everything. And it would be so cool to to meet someone as artistic as they are. And what they used in the first Night of the Living Dead, which a lot of people did use back in the day because for some reason corn syrup and food coloring did not work. And of course, food coloring stained the skin and stuff. They used chocolate syrup. And Hitchcock used chocolate syrup in his famous movie Psycho. So They use chocolate syrup for blood and oatmeal for the facial features. And then they use a lot of the townsfolk, which a lot of people do nowadays too. Like The Walking Dead, they use a lot of the people from town who come in as extras and be the zombies, the thousands of zombies that are swarming it. Um, of course, that's about it. Uh, I'm sorry, like I said again, I am not feeling the greatest. I think I ate something very bad when I got home that I shouldn't have. Just have not felt very well since I got home. In fact, I took a 4 hour nap when I did get home from the store, hoping that I would be able to get up and do this. I do have my popcorn and I did have my Raisinets and my Reese's Pieces to put in my popcorn, and I have my soda. And I was all set to go and all propped up, but please forgive me. I couldn't go live tonight. I hope you watch the movie still and enjoy it and take as much as I did out of it because it really kind of based my movie genre in my life, and I think it based a lot of people's movie genre. And it became, instead of just horror, it became a zombie group, a zombie genre. I mean, you have horror movies, but you have the zombie genre. And that is what I brought from it a lot. So I think that's about it. I know that we've all grown up on Memorial Day, and maybe I'll do this again on Memorial Day by placing flowers on the grave, and that's how this movie starts, is where Barbara and Johnny go place flowers on their father's grave in request from their mother. And she was always scared as a kid to go to a cemetery, as most of us were, but as I was growing up, that was a tradition on Memorial Day to go and place flowers on my grandparents' graves and family members that had passed away. I don't do that anymore. I believe that once we leave, we die, we leave our body, our soul leaves our body, and it's like a butterfly. It emerges from the cocoon and we fly up into heaven. Now, I may sound simple. Excuse me, I thought I was going to sneeze. It may sound simple, but that's the way I believe, and I like to believe that that's the way we go, and we don't feel anything after that. You know, of course, some of the zombie movies after Night of the Living Dead do show that. Probably one of the coolest ones was Return of the Night of the Living Dead, and this they cannot be destroyed. So that was kind of a scary one. And then even though it was a comical one, it was supposed to be comedy and it was supposed to be nothing but humor. You had to think about, wow, if you can't destroy them, then you can't escape them. And that was something, like I said, to think about. So, I'm sorry about tonight. I will try to get up more Friday Fright Fest. And I want to kind of change the title to Friday Fears because a lot of people don't like horror movies. But we all have something that we're afraid of and something that we have to conquer. And mine is birds. I'm terrified of birds. But I can look out the window and see them. I can get, I can walk outside and be amongst them. But if they come close to me, like on my shoulder or anywhere near my body, I just start freaking out. I can hear the flapping of their wings and their tiny little birdie feet, the wiry birdie feet, and I can see their beak pecking my eyeballs out. Hitchcock really screwed me up on that movie, The Birds. And so that's something I would like to do too, is get our phobias kind of movies about phobias. And I would like to do field trips to historical places like cemeteries and ghost hunts, and maybe go to the infamous Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa. I'd like to do a trip to there. I'm I'm not the type of ghost hunter that you think like you see on TV. They go in. I'm the type of ghost hunter that likes to go in and help them move on. I don't want to ask them 1,000 questions. I don't want to. I'm sure that they've heard it a million times. How did you die? Where? Who did it to you? Um, I don't want to bring up painful memories. I want to help them move on. And if they're still stuck there, then that means that they haven't moved on to where they need to go. Um, that's the type of ghost hunting I would like to do. And once in a while, you will see orbs around me, but I want to bring this to you all, and I wanted to make sure that you knew how sorry I was that I couldn't go live and in the chat room tonight with you all. And I love yous. I want you to keep safe and have some kindness and share some kindness and share your beacon of light and shine upon all of us. Have a good night, guys, and watch your movies.